while other places have ponies or parrots, we have dragons.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. This week, we're going to be talking about the High A Dayton Dragons, who play in the Midwest League in Dayton, Ohio. Later on in this episode, I'll be speaking with Terry Smith of Terry Smith Creations, who created the brand. I'll be speaking live from the Ocean City, New Jersey boardwalk with Ranger Amy Burnett. And of course, Dan Simon is back once again with his studio, Simon Stumper. Right now, I'm so happy to be joined by the Executive Vice President for the Dayton Dragons, Eric Deutsch. Eric, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me.
I'm great. Thanks for having us, Paul. Appreciate that.
It's absolutely my pleasure. This Dayton Dragons team, this Dayton Dragons brand, has been a hallmark of minor league baseball for a couple of decades now, since 2000. And one of the sort of notable things about this brand is that it has not changed much in a wildly changing minor league baseball logo branding landscape. This one has been a stalwart. It has been steady and even and unchanged. Before we get into what it actually means to the local community, can you talk about that sort of brand equity that you all have that would allow you to leave this brand unchanged for so long?
Yeah, I think when we started, the designer Terry Smith put together this mark that was not cartoony, was not comical, not whimsical. It was more of like a cleaner, not fierce, but stoic-looking, bold dragon, and our owners fell in love with it. And I think as teams have changed names or there have been added teams, there's been a lot of some other logos that fit well with communities, and I think we just left ours unchanged. And I guess in the end, we just are bigger fans of how the maybe Dodgers and Yankees brand presents versus some team that might have 7 different color iterations and name changes and looks over time. So I think we're going a little bit more narrow and deep on the marks and logos than others.
All right, so let's get into what this brand actually means to the city of Dayton, Ohio. Tell me about the dragon population in Dayton. How many kinds of dragons you have there? Are they a big problem? Is it a nuisance for people who live in the area?
Yeah, I think ever since that Game of Thrones show came out, we've been, a lot of people have really let their pet dragons a little bit unleashed, and we have some problems with the animal control population, but
yeah,
everything has been good there. Komodo dragons, I think, are not good for this climate, so they are not here. So I think all we have is maybe a Chinese dragon celebration from the Chinese community, and our mascots Heater and Gem. That's about the only dragons you'll see around here.
There you go. It is an interesting connection. I mean, it's some people I think would see Dayton and Dragons and just assume that it's the alliteration, but there is a reason for this Dragons brand to exist, particularly in the city of Dayton. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think there's a connection from when we were putting the marks and the logos and everything together. The research showed that there really wasn't a name of dragons in any major or minor league team mark or logo, so it was unique and different.
Mm-hmm.
And that Dayton is very, very proud of its aviation heritage. The Wright brothers were born here. They invented the plane here. They're a little grumpy that it was tested in North Carolina, but I think that was due to winds. But we were definitely first in flight here in Dayton, Ohio, and very proud of that. And we have a huge Air Force base and a great defense contract community here. So there's a lot of aviation technology still going on in Dayton. And so a lot of the sports teams have had aviation connections. The University of Dayton is the Flyers. We had a minor league hockey team, the Bombers. There's been some other teams that have come and gone using kind of the aviation theme. So not that was the number one thing with what we did, because I think maybe the town is probably, okay, we've done everything aviation. Maybe there's something different. But I guess one could say, hey, most dragons that we know, besides the Komodo dragon in fiction, do seem to fly. So I think that was a slight connection there.
Is that a connection? And maybe it's been long enough now where it doesn't matter that much, but is that a connection that the local fans make to the fact that you are dragons fly, and Dayton has an aviation history? Or is that a connection that you have to make for them? Or at this point, does it not even matter anymore?
I'd say it probably just doesn't even matter anymore. I think in '99 when the name came out. Some people connected some dots, but then after a while, there's just not a lot of aviation themes at the ballpark with what we're doing. It's just more fun family entertainment, having a good night at the ballpark. So I think, overall, we're very proud of the aviation history here in Dayton and the Wright brothers, but it's not like a everyday occurrence, and definitely not with the baseball team.
For sure. So I'm sure you get asked about this a lot, but even 8 years ago, that was 2015 when I wrote about this team for sportslogos.net, we talked about the streak. Can you confirm that the sellout streak is intact?
Yeah, it's still going. What we did is, some people asked me, what about the COVID year? We lost the season in 2020, so I guess everything was on pause.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came back in 2021, but the weird thing was we could only open at 30%. And so
Right.
we had about a fourth of the season at 30%. And we had so many ticket buyers, we basically were sold out for the capacity that we could have. And then once
Sure.
the COVID laws came down, we just kind of opened up, and then it just didn't seem fair to our community what we had built, because we had no off-season sales period. We had group outings were still not a norm. COVID had wrecked so many things. So what we decided as an organization, just for the community, because I think they were very proud of what they helped create, was that we'll just kind of push that year aside and we'll pick it up again when we get back to normal. So 22 was a very good year. We finished at, I think, 1,441 consecutive, and now this year we've to be honest, it gets harder every year. So we've still got some work to do later in the year in August and September, but our community has responded and rallied around our games April through June and July, and we're sitting at 1,480 something right now. So it's been a good start to the year.
1,480 something sellouts. If I want to get tickets to a Dayton Dragons game, how far in advance do I need to buy tickets?
I would say pretty early. We're definitely working, 6 to 9 months ahead of booking tickets, and people respond very early, so that's nice.
I've been to a lot of minor league baseball games, and they are usually not close to sold out. What do you attribute the popularity of the Dragons tickets to?
I think there's a good combination. I think, one, we've got an unbelievably great community. I moved here 25 years ago, and they are huge baseball fans. They're in the backyard of the Cincinnati Reds market, which is the oldest major league team. So there's a lot of baseball history of, granddads and dads taking their kids to their first game at Crosley Field and Riverfront Stadium and Synergy Field and Great American. So I think the lineage and the history of Reds baseball has very much educated our community as being good baseball fans. Two, they're loyal to everything: their church, their high school, their colleges, their teams, health issues, walks, charities. This is a great community. It's tough to market Dayton as something like you need to come and see Dayton as like a Vegas or an Orlando or something. But when you live here, you really find out Dayton is a terrific community, and they're very supportive. Three, I think minor league ticket prices are very inexpensive. We have something for every walk of life, so that's good for big business, medium-sized businesses, mom and pop shops, as well as families and individuals. Another thing, I think we really put a big focus on the game entertainment. It's not about wins and losses, because we don't control that. You get players who perform too well and they move up. So it's more about the entertainment, the customer service, the food and beverage experience, and how much fun you have to the game. So our equation is more smiles, laughs, memories versus wins and losses.
Well, it sounds like a great experience. I have never been. There's been a couple of near misses with our baseball palooza crew, some college buddies of mine and I who do a minor league baseball road trip every year. And the Dragons were not in town when we were in that part of the country. So, we'll have to find a way to get there. You mentioned the food and beverage experience. The ice cream helmet game is strong with the Dragons as well here. I have some green ones. I've got some orange ones in the collection back here. So you're always sort of mixing up the ice cream helmets, which I appreciate. Before I let you go, I did want to ask you just a question or two more about the brand itself. You mentioned it was created by Terry Smith Creations. The original brand has sort of a 3/4 angle of a dragon, very detailed, right? Like the first thing I thought when I looked at this is great artwork, and the marks themselves certainly look like they could be simplified. But when I think about things like embroidery or some of the sort of finer detail that you have to work with at a logo level, there's more detail in your logo than I think there is in a lot of minor league baseball logos. it's very much part of your brand that level of detail exists. And so obviously that's a conscious decision. Is that something that you all talk about or have to work with internally?
Yeah, I think back in the day when the logo came out, the cap logo has some detail with the scales and the tail, and
Mhm.
then the dragon logo definitely has some detail with the scales and the different tones of dark green and orange and the chest of the dragon. So for screen printers, I think it was a little bit easier on the CMYK process for T-shirts and other things like that. Embroidery became a little bit challenging, but I think that even now, 20 some years later from when the logo was put together, they do a very good job on getting, the technologies advanced to where some of these sew outs are really, really spot on. And then if you have an item that is too small to replicate for the dragon face, then that's where the cap logo, the D logo comes in handy as well.
I feel like I know the answer to this question already, but I'm obligated to ask it. Has there ever been talk of rebranding or changing things up?
We had a designer work with us a few years ago, and he did some softer modernizations of the marks and logos that came out pretty good. I think the brand's still intact. Nothing has dramatically changed on color scheme or marks. It was just more of a 2020 type of update. So we're looking at it. I don't think there's any major plans. We do have our 25th season coming up in 2025, so there could be something there, but that's a long way out, and we haven't discussed it much. But you never say never. But I think we like how we've gotten a little bit more Yankees and Dodgers with some of our marks and brands.
Well, it's a classic minor league brand with a lot of brand equity, and you clearly don't need to be doing a lot of theme nights or alternate jerseys if you're selling out every single night. So that's that makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah,
Little
interesting story about your helmets, if you don't mind, if I
Oh
keep you
no,
on.
absolutely, I would love it.
So Dippin' Dots was kind of a new ice cream treat in the Dayton area when we started. And so I think when we opened up the building in 2000, we had one cart. And boy, that took off and it went crazy. So by the end of the season, we had 6 locations and carts in the building.
All selling
And
Dippin' Dots.
yeah, and so I think today we still have 6 locations. And I think in the minor league network, I'm not sure if this is still correct, but from Dippin' Dots lore, because they're not too far here from us in Kentucky, is that I think we're the #1 Dippin' Dots seller in their minor league market. Um, and boy, it's still, very, very popular. The ice cream of the future is definitely here in Dayton, and there's more flavors and more colors and more options and more helmets, and it's there's no stopping Dippin' Dots in Dayton, Ohio. That's for sure.
You say there's a lot of different flavors. Is there one that you are particularly fond of?
I'm not a big ice cream guy, so
Okay.
I've also been here, 20 some years, so I'm not a hot dog guy anymore. I'm not an ice cream guy. It's like I'm waiting for the Chinese food stand to open up. Um,
That would be
but
appropriate.
yeah, it seems like the cookies and cream and the Oreo ones are the most popular. I think the number 3 is the cotton candy. There's rainbow, there's mint chocolate chip, there's blue raspberry, which my son likes, and every time he gets that, it's the blue bomb has gone off on his face. He's
Yeah,
7, so
of
it's
course. He
everywhere.
looks like the
But
Jacksonville Jaguar logo.
yep, yep. So there's definitely many different colors for whatever your palate suits. But I think the cookies and cream and the Oreo are definitely the #1 and #2 here.
I like the idea of a Chinese food stand at a minor league baseball stadium, and perhaps even in like that sort of mid-range size helmet, because there's different sized helmets. You could do, I could see some low main and a helmet. That's I like this idea.
Yeah,
So
well, there's the we could roll it out whenever the next year of the Dragon is, and we'll have to teach people in Midwest to use chopsticks at the ball game. Could be something on here that you and I will have to patent, and maybe we retire from our current jobs and we can roll this out to 120 minor league and 30 major league teams. So
I love this idea. I wouldn't need any financial remuneration for it, but just if we could just say it was sponsored by Baseball by Design, the podcast, I would appreciate
excellent.
that. So,
We'll have to get the Chinese phrasing for your podcast as well.
oh yeah, and now I'm gonna need a tattoo, I think. So, Eric, I got a lot to think about now. Thank you so much for joining me. Where can folks find the Dayton Dragons online and on social media?
Sure. Website DaytonDragons.com. I think we are Dragons Baseball on Facebook and Twitter. And I think we have a LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram as well. I'm older and not as hip and cool as the younger folks listening to this for those things. So I could be incorrect on that. They might have to search, but we are definitely out there on that.
At the time of this recording, Threads is all the rage. Threads has just been launched right now as you and I are recording here. So by the time this drops, we'll see if Threads is still the fad
I think of threads as clothing. That's how old I am. So
I wonder if they'll call it like to your follower number. I wonder if that will be your thread count.
oh, okay, very
I
good.
don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see. I appreciate getting to feature the Dragons on the podcast here. This has been fun.
yeah, thanks for the continued interest anytime, and we appreciate the time very much.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm super pleased right now to be welcoming to the podcast for the very first time Terry Smith of Terry Smith Creations. Terry, I have to say, just going through your website here with the variety of artwork, fine art that you do, it's not surprising to me that this Dayton Dragons logo that you created way back in, I guess, 1999 to be introduced in 2000 is not your typical minor league baseball logo for sure. So just by way of introduction, and we'll talk about the various things that you're into, the various companies that you have. I would say most notably in terms of Terry Smith Creations, you created the logo for the San Jose Sharks of the NHL, in addition to creating the Dayton Dragons logo. So by way of that long introduction, Terry, thank you for being here.
Sure. Nice to be here.
This is a logo that you created almost a quarter century ago. I mean, it's sort of wild to say that out loud, right? But it's been a long time since you created the Dayton Dragons logo. It is before this logo came into creation, before the current era of like really wacky minor league baseball logos was in full force. I mean, this was before the El Paso Chihuahuas and the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs and the Daytona Tortugas. I mean, there's a lot of sort of wackiness that has happened since then. This is a very serious logo. It's a very detailed logo, right? It's a really beautiful illustration of a dragon. When you created this logo, and in as much as you can remember this project from so long ago, can you tell me sort of what went into the creation of this dragon and this brand for a baseball team in Dayton, Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, one of the approaches that I always take with the logos that we do is I like to try to do something that I feel fans can relate to. A lot of times, and that's why minor league logos are always a little bit of fun. A lot of times if you get logos where the name of the team is, esoteric, the storm, the sun, or you get things like the stealth. A lot of times I've had to do logos like that and trying to come up with something tangible. So working on something like a dragon, hey, that's a lot of fun. You know what it is, and you can try to do kind of a fun interpretation of it. And then as far as the detail on it, part of my background is illustration. So there's a fine line between design, where you're creating an image with shapes, and creating more of an illustration where you're using line. So the Dayton Dragon is kind of a combination of both. But the biggest thing there is I like to give logos a personality. And so whenever you have something that is tangible, in this case, a dragon, you can try to give that dragon some personality through expression, etc.
He has this dragon. I'm going to assume I don't know. It's maybe it's hard to tell with dragons, I guess. But he's got, he's sort of sinister and right. And everyone has seen, since this logo was unveiled, obviously Game of Thrones has come and gone, and there's, dragons have existed a lot in popular culture. This dragon isn't just straight up like Tyrannosaurus Rex, dinosaur, evil, gonna eat you, right? Like he's got just a little bit of a smirk. You can tell there's something going on behind the eyes there, right? Like this guy is smart. He's not just a killing machine. To me, that's in the eyes. I see that, and he's got this sort of like furrowed brow, and he's not looking straight at you. He's looking at you out the sort of the side of his eyes there. So is that the personality you were going for here? This guy who's, not just intimidating, but a little bit sly as well?
Without question. It wasn't about being serious. It was more about being sly, being coy. There are multiple versions of that logo. One of them, he's holding a flaming baseball. And so again, the idea, I want kids in particular to be able to look at it and try to figure out what he's thinking and what he's doing. Did he just light the ball on fire and he's looking at you? What's happening? Is he about to throw a fastball that's flaming? So the idea was not to make it real, but somewhere in between cartoony and real. And like I said, give it personality. And you are correct. When you do logos like this, you want the character to make eye contact with the viewer. That's what kind of, I think, makes it personal. So the fact that he's not looking straight at you, but kind of, heads tilted to the side, eyes are kind of looking at you a little bit, but that's where you kind of get that little, coyness, if you will, sly, and then, a slight smirk. But yeah, I think part of it is you want it to be appealing and the personality to be appealing. And in this case, a dragon itself is already, fierce just by the fact it's a dragon.
Yeah.
So there's no need to emphasize that. So how do you make it more personable and more approachable? And so that was the approach that I took.
You point out that one of the logos that you did for the Dragons, he's holding a baseball, but it's different from a lot of minor league baseball logos where it's not an animal holding a baseball like a person would hold a baseball. He's looking at you out of the side of his head, and he's holding the baseball between his thumb and his forefinger, and the baseball's on fire. And so it's not like he's trying to play baseball with you. It's almost sort of like, hey, I got your ball, come and get it, right? Like it's definitely he's not throwing you the ball, he's not pitching the ball to you. I don't know, it has that feeling to me, like I got your ball, what are you going to do about it?
Part of the what I like to do with logos that I do is for teams in particular. I like to do multiple versions that essentially create a family of logos, if you think about it. So there's one that might just be the head. There's one I think we did for them that's just a D with a dragon's tail. Then there's, the dragon holding the ball. There's multiple iterations or a family of marks that the team can use in a variety of ways. So that's all part of it. And so, most of the time you may just see the head, on a hat or used. You may just see the D, but at times, when you want to have a little more fun, you have something that you can use in that way. In time, if we had more time and we're thinking it through, I probably would have created a version where you saw the whole body. When we did the Sharks logo initially, as an example, we just did, kind of the one version, the head kind of coming through the triangle, biting the hockey stick in half. But over the years, we've come back and, one of their, more popular jerseys is you actually see the full, leaping shark. So I think every logo should tell a story. And so if you look at most of the logos that I do, there is some story there. In other words, when you look at it, I want you to think about it from a story context. What's happening? What are they thinking? What are you trying to say? So with this particular one, there's a lot in that logo that lets somebody use their imagination to create their story. As I listen to you, you're creating stories based on what you're seeing. And to me, that's what a good logo does, especially in sports.
Yeah, this one absolutely does evoke those stories. I mean, there's this dragon daring me to come get the flaming baseball back from him before it burns up, and then we can't play baseball anymore.
Yeah, I think that's more important, especially at the minor league level. The storytelling that takes place in the minor leagues is, to me, super important to the communities, to the culture, to the teams themselves. I think you can be more generic, if you will, at the pro level. I don't like to be, but I think you can be, because they've got enough, merchandising and television, all that kind of stuff to drive sales. But at the minor league level, no, you need things like the Lansing lug nuts.
Well, it's the reason this podcast exists, because these stories are so much fun to tell. You mentioned that you like to do different versions of these logos and provide options to teams when you're working on a brand. One of the things that I've noticed, even on your website, where you have this logo listed among your other work, the version that is most prominent when you click on it is a red version. The team obviously went with a green version, so the green one's on there as well. But to my understanding, you did a couple of different colored versions of this dragon. Do those have different connotations to you? Does the red dragon have a different personality from the green dragon, even though they're, identical except for the color?
Yeah. Again, I don't update my website very often. I haven't. But that being said, I had originally, pushed for a Red Dragon.
Mm.
When I did that logo, they were a Cincinnati Reds affiliate.
Mm.
And so I thought it would be more appropriate if the colors represented the major league team that this was the minor league franchise of. Plus, looking at the area where it was, for me, it just made more sense. The team already had the colors of green and everything. I think they went with green because of the dragon, but I was pushing for, um, the tie and the connection to the major league team. Um, is there a different connotation? Again, people can determine. I think that when people see the red dragon, is the red might have been seen as more evil looking potentially.
Mm.
Green might have been more friendly, and I think they went with green probably because people assume a dragon is green. If you think about all of the children's books and fantasy dragons and all that kind of stuff that you see, the dragon's always green. He's a big lizard. And for me, it's more about the fantasy. So it could have been purple, could have been yellow, could have whatever.
Sure. This is going to be a really goofy aside here, I think, but I wrote a story about a minor league team called the Portland Sea Dogs. Their logo was created by a cartoonist and an illustrator named Guy Gilchrist, who, when I asked him about the Portland Sea Dogs, he said that he combined three things. He said he looked at what was popular in sports branding at that moment, and he combined, first, he draws the Nancy and Sluggo cartoons. And so he took basically Sluggo, who I think is a dog. And then he took the Chicago Bulls logo. He took the eyes, he said, from the Chicago Bulls logo. And then he took the San Jose Sharks, shark breaking a bat in half, and sort of incorporated that into the Harbor Seal breaking the bat in half. So he basically says that the Portland Sea Dogs logo, which is, one that I absolutely love, is equal parts Nancy and Sluggo, Chicago Bulls, and San Jose Sharks. And so it's fun all these years after I did that interview with Guy Gilchrist to be talking to you now, who created the San Jose Sharks logo, about the fact that influenced one of one of my favorite minor league baseball logos, the Portland Sea Dogs.
Well, let me tell you that when we did the San Jose Sharks logo, that was very controversial, especially with the league. Again, San Jose Sharks was a new franchise. It was in California. At the time we did that logo, I'm trying to think what the furthest NHL team west was. There was the LA Kings, but after that, you're going to probably have to go to the Midwest when they moved out. So hockey has always been a northeastern sport, kind of Canada and Northeast. And when we did that, my whole take on it was the league was coming to California. It couldn't be a traditional, hockey logo that somebody would do from the Northeast. The same thing when we did the earthquakes. A lot of sports have these traditions. So in soccer, it's all about the shields, kind of those coat of arms looks left over from what you see, from all the European soccer clubs. And in the NHL, you had all of these crests that went on the jerseys that were more representative of the cities and tradition and all that kind of stuff. Well, San Jose did not have a hockey tradition. You're in a completely new area. Also, at that time, the NHL did not have a television contract. Most of the money made by the teams was coming through regional sales, tickets, putting butts in the seats, and selling merchandise in your local market. That's how long ago this was. So again, we specialize, like I said, in creating stuff that sells. So I took that approach to that logo. We needed to create something that would create interest and excitement in California, out west, and something that was new and unique. Now, the reason I said it was controversial is because we took the tool of their trade, a hockey stick, and we were having a character bite it in half, essentially break their toe. The league was not happy about that.
Huh.
And they did not like the logo. I give the team a lot of credit for moving forward with it anyway. It was their decision, because at that time, NHL properties did not exist. So for your listeners, all of the leagues, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, and the four major leagues have what they call a properties division. This is their official licensing arm. And this means that all of the teams split the revenue that comes in from all the merchandising sales. When I created the Sharks logo, NHL properties did not exist. Therefore, whatever we created, the team owned and controlled. If the NHL properties existed today, the Sharks logo would not exist because they never would have approved it. But because the team could control it, they decided to move forward with it. And like I said, league wasn't behind it, but everybody else was. And when I say everybody else, that logo sold more merchandise before the team ever played a game. It ended up being the number 2 selling sports logo when it debuted, only behind the Chicago Bulls.
Wow.
Nobody's more powerful than Michael Jordan, I'm sorry. But they had more sales worldwide, and the team had never even played. So what it did do is it changed the way that NHL thought about, what they were creating. It did bring about, because the Sharks, it was making so much money, it did bring about the existence of the NHL properties. And what it also did was, introduce some new colors and color palettes and thought processes into, sports designs. That logo more than anything was probably pretty instrumental from a professional sports standpoint. So, it's not surprising that the way that, the Portland designer thought about it was, what's going to appeal. So he's thinking about, how are we going to sell merchandise?
Yeah.
And when sports logos were originally created, it wasn't about merchandising. It was about representing a team or an area. And what you'll see over time is which logos kind of have stayed the same, like, the Yankees and things like that, where they're just never going to change. And now what you're seeing is people know this is money now. And so that's part of what happened with the Sharks logo, is it helped reshape, I believe, how the NHL thinks about what they do design-wise now. And the other side of this is all the leagues now have internal organizations that do all this design work. Another reason why the Sharks logo wouldn't exist. Logos today, a lot of times, are designed by committee. And the logos that I do are not designed by committee. What I do is I do my research, I do my homework, I figure out what I think, that fan base wants. I study and learn about, okay, what is in that area that people respond to, and all of those kinds of things. And then I incorporate all that into something that I think people would want to wear, quite honestly. But to get back to baseball, as they are trying to reach a younger audience, trying to reach a new audience, you see the rule changes, right? The pitch count, the time clocks, things they're trying to get, more stolen bases, speed up, shorten the time that games take to play. So I think it's just a matter of time before you will also see this, some new approaches creep into how they present their teams and logos and that type of stuff.
Well, and I think we're seeing that with the City Connect uniforms now, that those have a younger appeal, I think, as well.
Well, again, timing is everything. I think there are a lot of teams. And the thing, whenever you do mess with sports logos, we've updated, a few over the years. And, my advice to, those teams that decide to do it is you have to be very careful, depending on the loyalty of that fan base. People have grown up with that logo, they know it, they associate it with it. And There are logos where people go, yeah, tired, let's change. There are other logos where they're like, no, don't touch it.
Yeah.
The Sharks was a very tricky one because that original logo, devout following. So when we updated that, you know, you get a lot of, I'm not big on social media, but people will call me, Terry, they hate it, this and that, and I just have to, I always tell people, most of what I do, people hate or reject. I said, but that being said, that's not how I judge it. What I judge it is on sales.
Mm-hmm.
And when we updated the Sharks logo, their sales went up 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So for all the complaining,
Yep.
we did our job.
Well, speaking of timing, I have taken up way more of your time than I said I was going to. I thank you so much for chatting with me. I mean, this is such a fascinating conversation about the Dragons in particular, whose brand also, by the way, has been around for a quarter century, basically unchanged. So that's that's a testament to its staying power for sure. I've mentioned Terry Smith Creations already. You've got some, the logo work that you've done in sports, and also some illustrations. I know that that's not your only business that you've started there. You've got a couple of other things you're involved with. Where else can people find you online?
The terrysmithcreations.com is where they can see kind of like sports, entertainment, video games, all that kind of stuff that we've done over the years. There's another site called imaginaryink.net, and that's ink is INK. There they'll see, I hadn't done any paintings for about 25 years. And so I started doing some more paintings again for those people out there that collected baseball cards. I did the first Fleer Pro Visions back in the early 90s, was a line I created for Fleer and was part of their baseball card sets. That was really the last time I was doing a bunch of sports paintings, and we started again. So there you can see some of the latest NBA paintings. And then we also have small-stars, so smallstars.com. We have stylized NBA caricature. They're pretty cool figures, and you can check that out. But those Imaginary Ink and Small Stars are part of collectible stuff that we're involved in with with NBA right now.
Fantastic. Well, such a pleasure to finally meet you, and thanks so much for coming on and talking about all your work and the Dragons in particular, and hope I get another chance to talk to you again soon.
All right. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry. Have a great one. All right, everyone. Welcome back. I am here on the Jersey Shore Boardwalk with Baseball by Design wildlife consultant Ranger Amy Burnett. Ranger Amy Burnett, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing very well. We are sitting in the shadow of Jillian's Wonderland Pier, where it has sort of a castle theme, and on the outside of the castles, we have some models, life-size models of dragons.
How do you know it's life-size?
Because that's what size dragons are.
Okay.
And so I figured this was as good a context as any, A, to do an interview on the Jersey Shore Boardwalk in Ocean City, New Jersey, but also to have a visual perspective, to have a visual reference. And this is fun because this is the same spot where Charlie and the Waitress had a very special evening on an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which, as you know, is one of my favorite TV shows. So, Ranger Amy Burnett, welcome to the Jersey Shore.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
This is great. I love it here. It's one of my very happy places. But we're going to talk about dragons.
You're so sick of me talking about birds.
Well, here's another flying thing, right? And the reason that Dayton has a team named after dragons is because dragons fly. So
Not all dragons fly.
Not all dragons fly?
Not all dragons fly.
Well, the Dayton Dragons
A lot of the
dragon.
Chinese dragons didn't fly.
Is that right? Well,
Yeah.
okay. So let's talk about dragons. What are they? Aliens? Are they dinosaurs? What are dragons?
They are cryptids.
Cryptids.
That means something that could exist but probably doesn't. So it comes from cryptozoology. It's the study of things that really aren't, but some of us hope that they exist.
Well, so where did we conjure the whole idea of dragons? Why did we come up with dragons?
So there's a lot of reasons why people think that, because here's the thing. There are dragons in Europe. There are dragons from Greek mythology, dragons from Asian textbooks. So dragons actually started in a few different places in the world, sort of independently of each other. And that's what makes people think, maybe they did exist or do exist still.
So why did why did people think they existed? If these were popping up across cultures, why did people think they existed?
So I think that first off, there are a couple of different theories. Sometimes people see things like Komodo dragons that looked like real dragons. They're just like smaller version. They thought, well, maybe these are baby dragons.
Looked like real dragons.
Look like real dragons. Well, Komodo dragons are actually lizards. And then there's another theory that said that people found fossils, and when fossils are dug up, they're black, right? So that the bones are black. And some of the fossils they dug up of dinosaurs really looked like they could be dragons, which is kind of an interesting thought.
Okay. So since these are fictitious animals, they are cryptids, as you say, from the world of cryptozoology. What qualifies a thing as a dragon? Like if dragons existed in one culture and another culture that didn't know anything about each other, what makes them dragons?
Yeah, they're basically large lizards with horns on their heads, usually leathery wings. They have these like hard scales on their body. They have a long tail with usually like a spike at the end, and then sharp teeth, sharp claws, stand on hind legs sometimes have more than 4 legs, and then basically just ferocious and fire breathing.
And they fly.
And some of them fly. Yeah.
Some of them fly. The Dayton Dragons fly. And it's not just that they have wings, because a lot of things have wings that don't fly. Mm-hmm. But the Dayton Dragon in particular, created by Terry Smith Creations.
Hi, Terry.
He's got this. It was great to talk to Terry. He was a very interesting guy. He's got this, not Terry, but the dragon that he created has these huge thumb and forefingers with a little baseball between them. And so, like, clearly, he might be a little oversized for playing baseball, right? Like, he can barely even hold this baseball. Yeah. I'm afraid, just looking at it, that the baseball is going to catch fire. So what are some applications for a big, scaly-winged, fire-breathing, flying animal to play baseball?
I've been thinking about this. Like, they have the leathery wings, so they have sort of like a built-in baseball glove that they can catch. Okay. So that'll be good. They just catch it in their wings. And, I mean, you'd never miss a ball that way, right?
Mm-hmm. True.
Insert your favorite klutzy outfielder here.
I have thoughts about this. I was thinking, because he's already got like the hard, scaly skin, he's got the chest protector built in.
Oh, I
so
like
maybe
that.
He's a catcher. And, he crouches down. He's on his hind legs already.
Yep.
He can crouch down. And he can offer a big target to the pitcher as a catcher. So I'm thinking maybe catcher. I don't know what the rules are in baseball, whether this has ever been addressed in the rule book, but if you can actually fly, could you play the outfield? Like, would you be allowed to play the outfield if you could fly?
You'd probably catch all the fly balls and catch them before they went out of the park.
What if...
Kyle Schwarber would be upset because he wouldn't be able to get his home runs anymore.
True. Well, Kyle Schwarber might lose his left field position to a big old fat dragon.
Yeah.
What about, I wonder what the rules are in place if a fly ball were going over a dragon's head and he just singed it into ash. Just breathed fire up into the air, and all of a sudden the baseball was just a little pile of carbon.
Well, it's a good thing they have extra baseballs.
You need extra baseballs, but what happens? In real baseball, if you throw your glove or some other piece of equipment at a baseball and you make contact, that's a ground rule triple. Did you know that?
What? No,
yeah, that's a ground
I didn't know that.
You can't throw your glove at a ball. So I think maybe if a dragon turned a baseball into a smoldering pile of carbon before it could leave the ballpark, I think ground rule triple.
Ground rule triple. I like it. Another thing about having a baseball player dragon would be that they would just be, they're just, I don't know how good they would be on a team because they'd just be getting mad all the time. Because I think of dragons as like mad. They're always like breathing fire, and they just have this nasty disposition, and they're just mad. Like, they wouldn't play well with others, and like they'd argue with the umpire, and the umpire would be like, out! And he'd be like, and then the umpire would just be gone.
And it does violate one of the rules, no smoking.
Oh, nice. Did you know that like the baby ones, they can only like breathe a little bit of fire,
That's
like
adorable.
enough to like singe. I read this, singe like a little pile of straw. And then the big ones, they have breath that can just like melt steel, like.
Yeah.
So like as you get older, you can, you just breathe scorching fire.
If you were a baseball manager and you had dragons on your team, you should watch How to Train Your Dragon.
That's right. Oh, I did find out that that a dragon is a one-man dragon, or one-woman dragon. So one person only can ride a dragon, and then they become bonded, and no one else can ride your dragon, which is kind of nice because you don't have to worry about having keys or anything like that, and someone stealing your dragon. It's just it's loyal to you. And then, but if dragons live so long that if a person dies, then the dragon could take another master kind of thing.
I'm wondering if maybe my cat Yodel is part dragon.
Well, she does kind of have a little bit of a little attitude, a catitude.
Yeah. And I think she's going to outlive us all.
I think so too. Some of them can live to be 200 years old.
Cats?
Dragons.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Ranger Amy Burnett, thank you for joining me here on the Jersey Shore Boardwalk in the shadow of Jillian's Wonderland Pier, where Charlie and the waitress had a magical evening.
Aww.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome back. It's time once again for Studio Simon Stumpers. I'm here with my friend Dan Simon of the noted design firm Studio Simon, which has done so much work in the sports branding world, including the logo for the Baseball Bucket List podcast by Anna DiTomaso, a fellow member of Curved Brim Media. And I bring that up because, Dan, this week you are wearing your Kirby Bucket logo that you created for Anna here. And I'm guessing because it's green, and the Dayton Dragons have a green brand. And both Kirby Bucket and dragons are representative of cryptozoology, mythological creatures. So that's the connection I'm making between today's Studio Simon Stumper and the hat that you're wearing right now.
That is indeed the connection. The green is the predominant color in the dragon's identity. And this is an all green cap with green in the logo as well. So I don't have any Dayton Dragons caps, although I will say I once worked on a Dayton Dragons project. It was their 5th season logo. I actually feel like I did a bang up job on that, and it didn't get used. So so that's my connection or lack thereof to the Dayton Dragons. So
all right, well,
but my connection today is I'm going to be asking you a Studio Simon Stumper about them. So here we go. Paul, as you well know, a minor league, any team's brand identity is not limited to its logo and uniforms. One's identity, just like even as a person or as a product, it has to do with one's personality, everything about the person or the product or the business. That's what makes up its brand identity. And one of the things that is a big part of the Dayton Dragons identity is the fact that they hold the all-time professional sports record for most consecutive sellouts. So that's where we're going with today's Studio Simon Stumper. In 2011, the Dragons broke the all-time professional sports record for most consecutive sellouts when they played their 815th consecutive sold-out game. So our question today asks, what team did they surpass?
Ooh.
Was it A, the Pittsburgh Penguins of the NHL, B, the Portland Trailblazers of the NBA, or C, the Boston Red Sox, of course, a Major League Baseball team? So Pittsburgh Penguins, Portland Trailblazers, or Boston Red Sox?
So this was 2011 when they surpassed this record. The Red Sox were in the midst of a renaissance at that point after winning the World Series in 2004 and then again in 2007, on their way to winning it again in 2013. So the Red Sox feel like a team that was having a lot of success at that time. Fenway Park, but man, 162 games, 81 home games a year, going back to, that would have been more than a couple of decades, right? Or more than a decade. All right, I'm gonna say it's just hard for a Major League Baseball team to sell out that many consecutive games. Would you say it was 800?
The record that the Dragons set was 815. So the previous record would have been 814.
So did the Red Sox sell out every home game from 2001 to 2011? That was a period of unprecedented success for that team. But man, like an August 17th Thursday afternoon game in Fenway, like there wasn't one that they didn't sell out in that stretch. So I'm gonna say not the Red Sox, even though I want to say the Red Sox. Portland Trailblazers, they play in Portland, Oregon, which is not known for its sports attendance prowess. With apologies to the Hillsborough Hops and the Portland Mavericks. So I'm going to say I'm feeling like probably not Portland. Any one of these feels like it could be the right answer. But through the process of elimination, knowing that the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I don't know as much about hockey, but I know that the Penguins have had a lot of success. I know that the hockey arenas can be a little smaller, just like the NBA arenas. I'm going to go Pittsburgh Penguins for the reasons I have elucidated.
Well, before I tell you whether you were right or wrong, I will say this. The reason I chose these 3 teams is because they all held or hold the record in their respective sports. Well, actually, the Boston Red Sox wouldn't hold it in their sport, but they do hold the major league record. Yeah. So all of them do hold the record for their respective leagues, let's say. Okay. And the answer to the question, surprisingly, is the Portland Trailblazers. They had 814 until it was broken by the Dragons. The Pittsburgh Penguins had 633.
Okay.
Now, the Boston Red Sox had 820, which is more than the Trailblazers' 814. But that would have come after the Dragons broke the record.
Oh, okay. So
and I think only slightly after.
Yeah.
So interestingly, the Red Sox did have a long streak where they sold out 10 plus years in a row. Mm-hmm. Now there's a certain caveat with this whole discussion. Remember, there was no 2020 season, so that would not have ended the streak because there were no games.
Right.
But in 2021,
yeah,
there was social distancing protocols and restrictions were still in place that capped attendance for different, depending on what state you lived in. There were different, some had no caps on attendance. Other states had some very significant caps.
Yeah.
And my understanding is in Dayton, Ohio, it was capped at about 30%.
Yeah.
So what the team says about that year is they, quote unquote, paused the streak that year because of those extenuating circumstances. Right. Now, whether they were technical sellouts or not, whether, if the max capacity was 30% and if they reached that max capacity, I do not know that.
Eric Deutsch and I actually did talk about this, and he says they sold every available ticket, but as you say, it was only at 30% capacity. So they don't count those limited attendance games against or toward their streak.
When you spoke with Eric, was the streak still active?
The streak is still active, yes.
Okay, because the last thing I could find on the internet was something from around mid-June where the streak was still active at 1,441. If you count all the games since then, I believe we would be at 1,483, which is just absolutely freaking remarkable.
It's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? And so, yeah. I mean, I want to bring Baseball Palooza there, but I usually don't have to worry about can we get tickets to these games, and that would be a consideration for sure going to a Dragons game.
Oh, I'm sure we could still make it happen for you, Paul. I know a guy.
Do you know some people? I feel like, by the way, maybe I should get, even though I didn't get the answer correct, maybe I should get not half a point, maybe 10% extra credit for saying at one point, all 3 of these feel like they could be the right answer. So the fact that they were the record holders in their respective leagues, I feel like I did have a sense for that, but not asking for anything I didn't earn here. I got the answer wrong for sure.
Okay, well, next week, maybe you'll start a new streak of winning.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, because right now I'm on the schneid, and so I gotta get off the schneid. It's been a few in a row that I've gotten wrong here. So, Dan, thank you so much as always. It's always so much fun to get to hang out with you and to talk about baseball trivia and factoids about all of these wonderful places that we get to learn about through minor league baseball.
The pleasure is shared. I was going to say the pleasure is all mine, but it's not all mine because you just expressed your pleasure. So I share that pleasure. I enjoy this very much, and looking forward to doing it again next week. So I'll see you then.
See you next week.